Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas. Their ongoing study in the future of theology, essays to honor Jürgen Moltmann. We're going to take a look at pages 267 to 284. It'll be our penultimate lesson. We only have one more lesson after this. It's going to be Hans Kuhn, and we will take a look at basically the need to overcome the loss of an oriented world and life in today's society. We'll look at it in 3 moments. The 3 moments are block 1 through 3. We'll look at the chart left to right. And we'll begin with block 1. And we'll take a look at the orientation jungle. There is a subjective need for a binding ethics, a need greater than ever before. We live in an orientation crisis, says Kuhn. Society as a whole is challenged. Our objective orientation crisis. Portrayals of violence flood the media, creating enduring harm. This creates an inclination toward violence in 4 ways: compensation for one's weakness, identification with violent characters, imitation and rationalization to justify violence, or projection of one's darker side onto another. 1.3. The lack of subjective ethic and the objective orientation crisis results in our living in an orientation jungle. By eliminating all taboos, we have become very prevalent in today's world, that we have a confusion of values without any clear standards of behavior. Results in brutality, degenerated language, unbridled self-realization, sunken threshold of shame, cynicism, violence, and obscenity. Self-realization has reached the point of excess. Confusion of values and the self-realization in excess. Countermeasure can only be a matter of education. Kuhn says the answer is a matter of education, to teach what is ethical duty and how to resolve conflicts without violence. Plurality of lifestyle must be critiqued continuously. He takes up the concept of Irene peace, religion and Irene peace. Religion has forfeited its credibility today. It should be implementing a global ethic. Instead, it creates a model of religious confrontation. There's a need to educate toward peace. So, his conclusion in block 1, to educate toward peace. Is the self genetically pre-programmed, or is the self guided by environment? Actually, both conditions apply, says Kuhn. But the self is also free from dependence upon these factors. Self does have a sense of self-determination. So, block 1 gives us the problem. The problem is a loss of a oriented life, a deeper center and an oriented life. That is the problem. Now we're going to move on to responsibility in the face of this problem. Responsibility of Christian faith. Aggression in religion. Religion exhibits an inclination toward aggression itself in the religion of fundamentalism when it faces the threat of secularization. Aggression can only be self-assertion and not destructive within Christianity. So, contributing to religious Irene peace, we must form a shared global ethic, address binding values, fixed standards, and moral attitudes, taking up the principle of concretization. Theory must become concrete. Affirm human fellowship, affirm mutual reciprocal caring. Conclusion. Fundamentalist aggression and contributing toward Irene equals a fellowship and mutual caring. We must revive the ancient rules of humanity, creating a change of consciousness in humanity. In the larger sphere of morality, education faces an enormous task, says Kuhn. The task of education. From religious tradition, we acquired the ancient maxims: revere life, act justly, speak truthfully, respect and love one another. Christ consolidated all of the commandments into one commandment: love one another as I have loved you. Love one another as I have loved you. So we've looked at the orientation problem in Block 1. We've looked at the task of Christian education in Block 2. Now we're going to look at the result in Block 3, mediating knowledge through value. Mediating knowledge through value. The objective challenge for education: to develop a global ethic with three aspects: not derived from ecclesiastical institution, inclusive of an actualized plurality, synthesizing both religion and ethics, where social dialogue is put into motion. The necessity of social or communal dialogue, especially within the ecclesia, but inside and outside the ecclesia, must be put into practice to discern the ethical maxims that we need. They are not acquired alone. Through dialogue, we take on a universal thrust that touches all continents and all cultures. So, dialogue will develop a universality of ethical maxims. It's where we discover the aletheia truth is in dialogue. We've discussed that before. You must discover the aletheia truth before you can ever get to forming a sign model, and that means entering into dialogue with your dokeo suppositions, and you want to transition from dokeo into aletheia, and that means you pass through dialogue. To move from dokeo supposition to aletheia truth, and then from truth to semeion sign, you must pass through dialogue. You don't do that on your own. You cannot transition from dokeo to aletheia to semeion on your own. That threefold transition takes place through dialogue. The much-needed intersubjective social dialogue informs a deeper understanding of praxis, defining and actualizing the international concept of peace. You can't reach concept, which, by the way, that means aletheia. You can't reach concept unless you pass through dialogue. You cannot reach concept unless you pass through dialogue. We must transcend narrow economic thinking in order that knowledge will be mediated through standards of value. Standards of value defined in communal dialogue. Conclusion: objective educational challenge and intersubjective social dialogue equals the mediation of knowledge, the mediation of aletheia through standards of value. We organize churches pluralistically. We focus on dialogue rather than dogma. We critically address the question of future, says Moltmann, all in the interest of eirene. And what is eirene in the Greek? The healing of fragmentation. That is the literal translation. Eirene is always translated peace, but it means healing of fragmentation, healing the fragmented soul, healing the fragmentation of world without orientation, healing the world without orientation by giving it a orientation in Jesus Christ, which will heal all fragmentation. But Hans Kuhn gives us a key solution to the problem of orientation, and that is necessity of dialogue in order to move from dokeo, supposition, to aletheia, truth, to semeion, sign, to deeper understanding of praxis, to ministry, to return moment. Again, to move from dokeo, supposition, to aletheia, truth, or aletheia, concept. Then moving on to semeion sign and the formation of a semeion sign model, and then a deeper understanding of praxis, and then the going out of the self in that deeper praxis in ministry, and then the return moment of imprinting the heart with the tupos imprint of Jesus Christ, which will affect our Sophia wisdom of the heart, which then informs our Gnosis wisdom of the mind and deepens our understanding of Christian faith, answering what Kuhn says is a necessity of Christian education to overcome the problem of a lack of orientation toward God's kingdom. And we do lack that orientation toward God's kingdom. Our world is turned upside down ethically. It is completely backwards, and it lacks a deeper orientation toward the living Lord God and His kingdom in Jesus Christ. Kuhn gives us power. He gives us real dunamis and energy of power. He basically defines the needed realm of spirit that needs to be implemented and actualized through the church and through church education, education in every ministry, that every gift that is given to the church, every gift must serve this deeper education to bring Christ-centered orientation of our world, reclaim the ethical values of Christian faith. It is precisely what we need. So Block 1 gave us the orientation jungle and the need to educate toward peace, because the self does have the ability of self-determination. The self possesses freedom. We address the responsibility of Christian religion as fundamentalist aggression and contributing toward Irene peace to reach a fellowship and a mutual caring that means taking up the task of Christian education and reaffirming the ancient maxims of revere life, act dikaiosune justly, speak aletheia truthfully, respect and agape love one another, revere zoe life, act dikaiosune justly, speak aletheia truthfully, and love one another through agape, self-giving, kenotic, self-sacrificial love. The command from Christ, love one another as I have loved you. I give you one command, love one another as I have loved you. One singular command from Jesus Christ. All of that results in, says Kuhn, that knowledge will be mediated. It's a mediated knowledge through dialogue with others where you ascertain value. You end up with a filter of value, and that is conceptualization of value. You reach concept or aletheia through dialogue. Then you can take those concepts and you can move on toward a future pointing sign, semeion sign model. You can form that symbolic semeion sign model, and that's theoretical, but Moltmann taught us you move from there to the practical with your deeper understanding of praxis, and you form a particularized mission model. Then you go out of the self in mission in a very praxis-based way, and from there you are ready for the surplus of promise that will reveal new truth within the midst of ministry. And that surplus of promise will be re-internalized. And surplus of promise is always Christ-centered, Christ-based. So you'll return with the tupos imprinting of Jesus Christ on your heart, in your heart, deepening your Sophia wisdom of heart. That in turn will inform Gnosis wisdom of mind. And with Gnosis wisdom of mind, you'll have a better informed dialogue, communal dialogue. And then you enter the dialectic all over again. You deepen aletheia truth, you deepen and redefine your semeion signs. You form a more comprehensive and more clarity sign model, and then move on to praxis ministry. All of this is given to us in Hans Kuhn's essay, pages 267 to 284, The Problem of Lack of Orientation, the responsibility of deeper dialogical Christian education, the result of a mediated knowledge being acquired, a mediated Sophia heart knowledge being acquired through the filter of Christian values. Because, again, we will take up those ancient maxims of revere, zoe, life, act, dikaiosune, justly, speak, aletheia, truthfully, and agape, love one another, or kenosis, sacrificially love one another. Be willing to empty yourself sacrificially to take up true care and love of the other. Tremendous teaching by Hans Kuhn. This is our penultimate lesson, and we have one more lesson left. It's going to be Paul Ricoeur. You know, it's going to be about language. It's going to be Paul Ricoeur. Now it's going to wrap up 267 to 284. We'll pick up next time on page 285.